I got an email from a mega church pastor with a very raw confession. But after what happened next, I knew I couldn't stay silent. You see, one Monday morning, I opened my inbox and I noticed an email from a well-known mega church pastor, someone whose sermons had impacted millions. Here's what the email said. Hey JT, a good friend of mine referred me to you. I saw his transformation and how he's been able to keep the weight off for almost 4 years. JT, the truth is I hide behind being a foodie, but truly I'm a food addict. I need your help. Let me tell you what I told him and how I helped him lose 80 pounds and more importantly, overcome his irresistible cravings and tricky relationship with food. I'll also give you guys a free tool my team made that will help you on this journey of losing weight and decreasing body fat percentages in record time. I'll put that in the description box below. But first, let's talk about this challenge that needed to be addressed. The pastor's brain was addicted to these unhealthy foods. I think most people don't realize that this is an addiction and not necessarily that you just have a big appetite. We had to break that dependency with the first step. This is where you can start to see irresistible cravings and temptations disappear very, very quickly. I told the pastor the first thing we need to understand is that the body can only run on 2 fuel sources, ketones or glucose. Essentially, our bodies run on fat or sugar primarily. If your metabolism has been conditioned by the standard American diet, it takes a little while. It's going to be tough to transition from being a sugar burner to a fat burner. That's why we need to begin with the most conservative part of our plan. We call it the reset phase. It's beautifully simple, but it's also challenging because initially you'll battle the desire to constantly spike insulin with foods like rice, potatoes, pastas, breads. During this phase, we don't count calories, macros, or points, so we make it super, super simple. Instead, we focus on foods that don't spike your blood sugar, lean proteins, healthy fats, fibrous carbs. I told the pastor, don't worry. The goal of this program is to bring freedom around food, not restriction. We don't demonize food groups. We operate in seasons just like the book of Ecclesiastes teaches us. He laughed and said, when do I get a cheat meal? I said, Pastor, we haven't even started and you're already thinking about a cheat meal. But I reassured him we would get there. Before that, we need to talk about phase 2 and what that looks like inside of the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan. If you miss this next phase, this phase 2, you'll be right back to square one in no time. So pay close attention. Phase 2 introduces what we call carb cycling. We start sprinkling in what we call slow digesting carbs. In this phase, we start to experience freedom around food. We're bringing in more calories. You're bringing in some of those things that you enjoy. Most of us like to eat carbs, and so we teach you how to do that. We bring food that you love while maintaining an excellent weight loss trajectory. In other words, in phase 2, people continue to lose weight. Phase 3 is where things get super easy. This phase teaches how to keep the weight off for good without skipping holiday celebrations, foods that we all love by practicing a principle that we call the 80-20 principle. This is a principle that brings tons of sustainability into the program. The pastor looked at me and said, I think this is actually doable. I smiled and said, well, it's been 24 years and people love the balance that we bring through sustainability and that 80-20 principle. He then asked, talk to me about the faith component of your program because I hear you talking a lot about temple stewardship and that sort of thing. Can you tell me a little bit more of what that looks like? I smiled and said, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but hear me out. We both agreed that no one had ever truly made a sustainable change through just simple guidelines or rules that most of these secular programs teach, right? These behavior modifications. Guidelines can only take us so far. The people who sustain results in our program are those who understand their intrinsic why, right? The reason for taking care of our body, what we call temple stewardship. The secular nutrition world focuses on, as I mentioned, behavior modifications. Eat this, don't eat that. Those guidelines have value, but they're incomplete. Eventually, most people revert back to their old habits, right? You've heard the typical yo-yo dieter. True transformation happens when your habits are connected to something greater, a conviction, not just a checklist. Romans chapter 12:1 reminds us that we are to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. When the desire of our heart is to please God in all areas, even your nutrition becomes a spiritual discipline. Your why becomes sacred, and when your heart is convicted in a healthy ways, boundaries stop feeling like barriers, and they become an act of worship. But you see, I believe conviction without action is incomplete. And this is where movement comes in. But what if the key to burning fat wasn't intensity, but consistency at a slower pace? The pastor said, wow, I've never heard it explained that way. I said, I know most Christians have never heard of temple stewardship taught so practically. Then he asked, so do I have to go to the gym and lift heavy weights to lose weight? I said, no, you don't have to do that. One of the most powerful ways to steward your time and health is through slow burn cardio, also known as zone 2 training. It's one of the fastest, most sustainable ways to burn fat and increase endurance. All you need to do is stay at a heart rate of between 115 and 130 beats per minute. Now, your exact zone 2 cardio range will be different depending on your age and other factors, so my team made a calculator that skips the math and gives you the exact heart rate you need to be at. Just click the link in the description box below, and it is pinned in the comment. For most people, 45 to 60 minutes is the sweet spot. If you do that consistently, you'll see fat melt away like never before. Sure enough, he went on to lose 80 pounds and fix his eating habits for good. Now, if you're wondering who the pastor is, this was the pastor of Epiphany Fellowship Church, author of Urban Apologetics, Pastor Eric Mason. Also, if you want to learn more about the system that helped Pastor Eric Mason lose almost 80 pounds plus, I'll include the link in the description box below. Now that I just showed you how Pastor Eric Mason lost 80 pounds, you need to know how to create the level of discipline required to stick to the plan, and you won't be able to do that unless you watch this next video. I'll see you soon.